I was at
Hello.
the LA rally. I have gone to all of the Los Angeles rallies since this whole thing started, every single week. But this one was definitely different. And I think we all felt that as we were there. I just wanted to talk about two things, two distinct things in this one. Well, maybe three. I'll be quick. I took an Uber there, and as we were getting closer to the area, he saw all these people with flags and everything, and he got a little bit nervous. He said, "Oh, I think there's a protest going on." And I said, "Yeah, that's where I'm going. We're here to protest and everything." And he said, "Oh, okay, well, I have to be careful because they throw stuff at you." And I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. This is not that. This is not one of those protests." So then I started explaining to him, "We are all Iranian. This is what's been happening. The government killed like thousands and thousands of people." And then he kind of lit up and he said, "Oh, the government did that to the people?" I said, "Yes." And then he started telling me his story. He was from Honduras, and he said, "It's the same thing happening over there. The women's bodies are being chopped into pieces and spread all around the place, and nobody knows about this. Nobody in the world talks about it." And he just went on and on about what's going on over there. And I said, "Well, yeah, I feel you. We are all here so that we can be the voice of the people inside because they are being killed for speaking up." So that was my whole exchange before I even got to the protest itself. And once we got there, I got there about an hour and a half early, and it was already full. It was like so many people there already, and I didn't think we would have space for more people, but it did happen to the point that when they announced we're going to do a minute of silence for the lives that are lost, and we were all silent in our area, but we could hear 2 blocks away very faint chants of Iran, Iran. So they didn't know that 2 blocks on the other side were doing a moment of silence. So the crowd was massive. And then when we started marching, we went through a tunnel, and inside that tunnel, there was a huge echo of voices and the chants that was going, and it just gave you this spirit of, I don't know, it was such a huge feeling of solidarity that we all felt at the same time. My mom started crying, like, and I saw a whole bunch of other people get so emotional, and tears were coming down, and it was just something amazing. And one last thing, one interesting event that we also noticed, we were walking down the sidewalk to go to a different area, and there was this guy who was very angry and he was walking with firm footsteps and he kept screaming, "Iran should bomb America! Iran should bomb America!" And he just kept walking past us, and we were all just looking at him and smiling and laughing, kind of. So, yeah, that was our experience there. Los Angeles was truly fantastic. So many people. And I did see quite a few non-Iranians as well that had joined us. And I made sure that I thanked as many that I could see. And I thank everybody who was able to join to our rallies as well.
Amazing. Thank you. That's amazing. And thank you for going, Nara. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Damn it again. Okay.
Armin, you're next.
Oh, okay. So making it bit now, going from wholesome to a bit geopolitical. Just wanted to look at this analysis regarding how, from an Islamic perspective, what are some changes that we might see happening inside Iran and in Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria with the fall of the Islamic Republic and return of Pahlavi to Iran. Just wanted to just quickly go through this and see what we agree with and what we don't agree with. So, Iran itself, we're going to be seeing an exodus from Islam. The state, this is the analysis. Let's see how true it is. So this is what is supposed to happen after the Islamic Republic falls. Okay. So the state will not just be secular politically, society will likely be aggressively secular as well. So this is not just the government. We will see a surge in pre-Islamic Persian identity. Think Cyrus the Great, Zoroastrian symbolism, and replacing these, basically replacing Islamic symbols. Like for example, you could expect to, when you go to Iran, you're going to see Zoroastrian symbols everywhere where Islamic symbols used to be, Cyrus the Great symbol, but just think that times like 100, like everywhere, right? And you could like I think you could expect that in our school, like in our classroom, in our programming on TV, on our culture. I think there's, I bet, like when children go to school, they're going to be a huge education focusing on teaching our ancient culture, our ancient history, our kings. I think there's going to be a lot of that. I think a lot of words are going to be replaced. Islamic words are going to be removed, and people are going to use like more Persian words. You could see like a lot of TV anchors using Persian words instead of Islamic or Arabic words. So basically, like, I think everywhere you go in Iran, you will notice that things have changed significantly based on the symbolism and the vocabulary, this, the media. It's not going to, it's not just going to be economic progress or development or safety. I think symbolically, every day there are things that will remind you that this is a new era, and we have basically, it's not, this is not an Islamic country anymore, right? I mean, not ruled by Islam either, not just the people. So we're going to, so let me see now this next paragraph. It's like religious freedom versus backlash. Let's see if we agree with this. The new government will likely promote total religious freedom, but socially, there may be a strong anti clerical backlash. Mullahs and religious institutions might face social ostracization or anger from a population traumatized by decades of theocratic rule. I mean, I pretty much agree with this. I don't think it's going to be as bad as like Muslims being attacked for being Muslims. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like that. I don't think like people are going to be like, shame on you for being a Muslim. I think that's going to be just like on the internet, like on Twitter or X, or like some people are going to have those views. But I think in day to day life, I don't think that's going to happen. I do expect it life to be difficult for mullahs. Like I do think that, not in the sense of like maybe their security, I don't think so, but I think that there's going to be a lot of shame associated for remaining a mullah. I think the mullah class would fall, like the entire mullah class, the Rouhani class will fall in a couple of years. Not, I mean, not just the regime, but that as an industry as a whole will, I think, will like, even, I'm not going to go as far as saying Islam will end, but I think the clerical class that will end in Iran. The end of Shia leadership, Iran will officially renounce its claim to be the leader of the Muslim world. It will obviously that doesn't need even talk. It will pivot to being a normal nation state driven by, okay, I disagree with this. It says by Persian nationalism. I don't know what it means by Persian. If by Persian is talking about culture and language, I do agree with that. But if by Persian it's talking about ethnicity, then very much disagree with that. I think maybe not even culture. I think culture, they will be focused on diversity of culture in Iran. It's not going to be Persian nationalism. It's going to be Iranian nationalism. So I do disagree with this wording here. So the nation state would not be driven by Persian nationalism. That's wrong. It would be driven by Iranian nationalism with a focus on Persian as a national language. But when it comes, so we have three, when we say Persian, we're referring to three things. We're referring to language, to a culture, and to ethnicity. Ethnicity, I think that diversity, like, is going, we're going to highlight the diversity of Iran. When it comes to culture, I think we're also going to be highlighting the diversity of Iran, not just Persian but also Azeri, Kurdish, all of that will be highlighted. The only thing that I think that the state will be focusing on making it one and not diverse is the official language of the country will be Persian. It will not be Kurdish, it will not be Turkish, it will not be Arab, it will not be Baluchi. The Persian would be the official language of the country, and everything everywhere will be in schools would be taught in Persian. Okay, and people will have classes on their local language as well. Like for example, Kurdish classes will be taught in schools. Turkish languages, Arabic languages will be taught in school, but as a side course. Like you're not going to have like math and chemistry will not be taught in Kurdish or Arabic or Turkish. All of that, all the main courses has to be in Persian. So the only part when it comes to culture, ethnicity, and language, the only part that there's going to be an emphasis on all of it being Persian is language. But culture diverse, ethnicity diverse, language one state language and nothing else. Like we're not going to be a multilingual like Persian and something else like Canada, for example, like for like English and French, like not like Canada. It's going to be only Persian. The reason why we need that in Iran is because, for example, in a country like Canada, we have many people who speak English and don't speak French, and we have many people who speak French and don't speak English. That's why we need to have a dual language for Canada. But for Iran, everybody speaks Persian, and like it basically connects the entire country. So teaching, for example, Kurdish kids, teaching them math and chemistry or science or whatever in Kurdish makes them less available. Like it gives them less job availability. It disconnects them for the rest of the country. Given that everybody speaks Persian, Persian people, Kurdish people, Turkish Azeri people, Baluchi people, Bakhtiyari people, they all speak Persian. We need to keep this bond to make the country united on the Persian language, right? So, yeah, it says. So let me fix that. So it's going to be a normal nation state driven by Iranian nationalism and economic interest rather than religious ideology. Obviously, then we're going to have new. It says. I don't know if I haven't read this part. Let me see if I agree with it. New spiritualities. We will see a public boom in alternative beliefs that are currently underground. Christianity, which is growing fast, it says, Zoroastrianism, it says, and spiritual but non religious agnosticism. Okay, but I think the number one thing that has grown in Iran more than any of this is God believing people with no religion. So that is the number one. So that's not very spiritual, but I think that's based on, I mean, it could be spiritual, I guess. I don't know. But so I think the number one demographic when it comes to religious beliefs is people who believe in God, but no religions. And then the second category, I think, would be Shia Muslims. And the third one would be atheists, right? So I think Shia Muslims are something in between non religious people. But nuns are number one. But yeah, Christianity is growing very fast. But if you're starting from a very small percentage, it's easy to grow fast while still remaining a small minority. Zoroastrianism, I don't know if Zoroastrianism is going to grow as a religion. I think people just appreciate Zoroastrianism's symbolism as a symbol of our nation and our history, like a nationalist, like patriotic symbols of our country. And many people enjoy Zoroastrian history and symbolism as symbols of the country in Iran without actually being Zoroastrian. So I don't know if people are actually going to convert to Zoroastrianism. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. Anyways, this was actually longer than I thought. I'm going to leave what's going to happen to Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria. How this is going to, from an Islamic perspective, how this is going to change these countries after some other people speak. But so I have a lot to go over, but I don't want to give a very, very long speech because then nobody will have an opportunity to speak. All right, so let's move on.
We would never cut you off, though.
Okay.
Next is Amy.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Good. BT, by the way, your mic is back open. I think you cursed it twice. That's okay. That's okay. Go, hi, Amy.
Okay.
That's okay.
Oh, what was my? Oh, okay. So I haven't been paying attention. I haven't really been watching TV today at all. So I haven't seen a lot. But does anybody has Prince Reza Pahlavi said anything about, or anybody else said anything about what the drafting of the Constitution process is going to look like, or how that's going to, does anybody have any idea what that is going to look like or how that's going to unfold? Because that to me is super freaking fascinating. coming from, like the American Constitution and thinking about our forefathers and all the stuff that they must have had gone through. And it wasn't that long ago. And now you guys get to do it like all fresh and it's super so exciting. So that was my question. That's it.
That's a very good question, Amy, because so after the fall of the Islamic Republic, when we get to the process of writing our constitution, imagine that if you could observe the founding fathers of the United States writing the constitution, but in an age where we had social media, the internet, 24-hour news, and and you were living through it and witnessing it happen. So we get to experience that. Imagine going through the foundation of our of our independence from the Islamic Republic, not our country. We're 2,500 years old. So, but of our the new chapter in our country, while we observe every single step of it, right? So let me tell you what I know about how we're going to get there. Before we even get there. So first, we're going to have, after the fall of the Islamic Republic in Iran, we're going to have the transitional government, right? The transitional government with the leadership of Princess of Pahlavi. There's no elections here. The whole point of the transitional government is to create the situation where we could finally have elections. So to bring the stability required to get there. And the goal is to get there in 100 days. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's the goal of the transitional government, right? Once that happens, the first election that we're going to have is going to be a referendum, because we're not going to write the constitution until we know the form of government that we're going to have, because the constitution needs to be written with having that in mind. So either we're going to be a constitutional monarchy or a republic without a monarch. So if we're constitutional monarchy, we need to write in the constitution like how the king is picked, like like who, do people get to remove him from power, for example, if he's not doing a good job? What is his role? Like all of this needs to be determined. Like we can't write a constitution until we know that if we're going to be a monarchy or not, right? So that's election number one, the voting number one, the referendum, where the Iranian people vote probably between two options: a constitutional monarchy or a republic without a monarch, right? The reason why I keep saying a republic without a monarch, because technically a constitutional monarchy is a republic. I mean, you have voting, you have a parliament, you have a constitution. So a lot of people say, oh, a republic or a constitutional monarchy. Well, constitutional monarchy is also a republic. So that's why I like to call it, the other option, a republic without a monarch, right? So once we have that referendum, then we're going to have the second round voting, which is going to be picking our representatives in the Council of Founders. Shorei Monsasan. All right. Council of Founders. So you know how you had the founding fathers of the United States? We're going to elect them. We're going to vote on who's going to be our founding fathers, right? So our founding fathers will be chosen by the Iranian people in an election, and those people are going to be responsible for writing the constitution. And so we pick them, and they're going to work on the constitution. They're going to give us a constitution, but here's the thing: then we're going to vote. We're going to review it, and then we're going to have the third vote. The third vote will be whether or not we approve of this constitution. So just because we voted for them, that doesn't mean that whatever they write will be automatically approved. Once they write the constitution, then they offer it to the Iranian people. Then we're going to have a referendum to say yes or no to the constitution that they wrote. If they if we vote yes, then we're going to go to the next round, the fourth voting. So the first one was the referendum between constitutional monarchy or a republic. Second round was for the members of the members of the Council of Founders. Third one was to accept the constitution. If it wasn't accepted, then they have to go rewrite it and then put it up for a vote again. But let's assume that it was approved. Then we're going to go for the next election, which is based on the constitution now that we have. Then we have to form a parliament, because, like, assume, for example, now we are constitutional monarchy. So now within the parliament, so that somebody within this parliament could become the prime minister, right? So we're going to have a king, we're going to have a prime minister. So the fourth round of voting would be to the parliament to pick the members of parliament. So the details on exactly what the Council of Founders is going to do and the process in which they're going to be writing the Constitution hasn't been discussed yet. The only thing that has been discussed is that this is how we're going to pick the people who write the Constitution. Does that answer your question, Amy?
Yes.
But Amy, just imagine that fun we're going to be having once all of this is going to just like imagine
I can't
the
even.
yeah, I know we're gonna. By the way, I really do think that the U.S. Constitution will be brought up many times. I'm almost 100. I'm 100% close to 100% certain that the U.S. Constitution in all of these discussions and these debates, the U.S. Constitution will be brought up many times. So, yeah. All right.
Okay,
That was
next we
fun.
have Jeffrey.
There you go. Sorry, I had to sit there and click off my mic. So all good points. I want to bounce off a couple of them, and I want to ask a couple of quick questions that maybe Armin and the people who attended those rallies can maybe answer based on their experiences. So a lot of what goes on in the United States during, say, the Black Lives Matter riots, by any means necessary, Antifa, mirrors a lot of what you're seeing contemporary adversaries do, or what Armin's observation was very insightful, Armin, your observation, which is, and it mirrors what the patriotic bloc experienced during the selective application of policing, specifically the non-response law enforcement was forced to adopt to lesser kinetic and or kinetic operations that define the radical left and Islamic fundamentalists' diversity of tactics. In other words, it was very much a resultant of the operational constraints placed on law enforcement via local politicians that were directly responding to those same radical leftists and Islamic fundamentalists electorally punishing them. A lot of that looks to, or a lot of that weaponization tries to draw on the perversion of insights drawn by Della Porta. She's actually one of the more renowned contemporary analysts regarding political violence in the world ever since the 90s. And she came up with an operational doctrine that was included all throughout the West that dealt with policing in a Western society, which a lot of the bad guys, radical leftists, Islamic fundamentalists, Chinese Communist Party, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, shake a stick, you'll hit an asshole, right, have learned to weaponize. So keeping within the broader contextual focus of such efforts is, and it's very much the contextual focus of this discussion, which centers around liberating Iran from the Mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran since 1979, and how, like, radical leftists and Islamic fundamentalists leveraged certain diversity of tactics prior to the fall of the Shah via the Red-Black Alliance. I wanted to know if you think the one who was in London, forgive me if I forget your name, I was just trying to juggle a lot of chainsaws here. Do you think maybe the moderation in how they were, how the law enforcement was implemented during your time there, which I'm very happy it occurred the way it did, was in response to the pushback that was, the sociocultural backlash that was, that was resultant of the selective application of the law enforcement? As for Armin, you're not wrong. I would contend the sociocultural blowback is almost surely going to be a backlash to the abuse that Iranians suffered on the behest of the Mullah regime, and it's probably going to bear itself out in physical elements that the Mullah regime used as part of their apparatus of repression. In other words, like, why did they take that? Why did Iranians and Persians burn down mosques? It's because the IRGC and the besieged brigades used those as centers of gravity and operational headquarters to punish and torture people. And this would, there's other elements, though, that you mentioned that were very important, which is the restorative efforts at the sociocultural level regarding Persian culture that was punished by the Mullah regime that has illegally occupied Iran since 1979. So the issue then is, how do you manage that, the potential instability there? And so this is one key point you brought up, which I want to hear your insight on. The picking of the founders. The positive impact of that is that Iranians will be directly involved in and subsequently have ownership over the process, which will increase public buy-in, extra well, public and or extra personal, meaning an individual versus something bigger than an individual buy-in, along with legitimacy and sustainability of the government that is ultimately selected. The challenge is the operational security element because an open system is vulnerable to dishonest actors attempting to hijack that process to disrupt it. So, is there plans in place to insulate them from disrupting it?
Insulate the former regime people in
So, hold on.
disrupting the process.
Insulate the very much the broad and very much appreciated public approach towards electing the founders. So in other words,
Oh,
bad guys go, yeah, they're gonna put not me, not we, I'm not one of them. I'm saying one of those bad guys are gonna go, well, then they're gonna put forward their own representative to push forward their own warped, watered down version of, say, the Mullah regime.
oh, okay. So this is how Princess of Pahlavi's four principle comes in, right? So we're going to. By the way, we don't want to come. We don't want to. I think, in my opinion, I don't want to speak on behalf of all Iranians. I don't think it's a good idea to basically not allow people in because of shitty ideas, because that's what you're asking? Like, how do we make sure that they don't come in and infiltrate and basically bring the Islamic Republic through a back door, right? So we're going to have four walls where we're not going to allow people in based on these four principles, right? So the four are the border integrity of Iran. Anybody that is active politically trying to challenge the border of integrity of Iran has no place in Iranian politics, right? So no separatist parties or activists will be allowed in. That's number one. Two, democracy, right? Anybody with undemocratic principle who wants to challenge democracy itself, obviously, right? The third one is secularism, which is will keep probably any Islamic Republic elements out, would be basically anybody with any religious goals or a religious agenda would not be allowed in the politics of Iran. Will not be allowed. I mean, they could argue for it individually as citizens, but they will not be allowed into the government. And last principle is equal individual rights before the law. So these are the four principles. I mean, could somebody lie and get in anyways? I mean, a lot of these people have a record. They could say like, oh, "Okay, changed my mind." Sure, they can get in, but obviously, based on our constitution, they're going to be looked at, and every time they want to push for anything that would be challenging any of these four principles, that would be violation of the constitution and would be dealt with accordingly. But these are the ways. So when it comes to the Islamic Republic, I don't think the Islamic Republic's own ideology is that much of a threat in the future politics of Iran because of how vile and disgusting anything they stand for was and how low in numbers they are. But there are some other versions of the 57 philosophy. I don't know how to. So the Panjo Haftia, which is basically the what we label the category of the ideologies that are responsible for the Islamic Revolution of 1979 and everything that basically Iran suffers from, like basically the Marxists, the Islamists, the Mossaddeqis, the MEK, all. And I think the Islamic Republic version of that expression of that ideology is the least we have to worry about, in my opinion, right? I think Marx, like leftist, like far left ideology, and Mossaddeqism is a group of people that I don't think these four principles will be able to hold back, right? So they will be able to get in. So that's the problem that we have to deal with. These people will probably be able to run as as members of parliament. And the reason why I know that now for sure is because Princess of Pahlavi confirmed that Nargis Mohammadi could run as try to become prime minister if she wanted to in the future of Iran, which Nargis Mohammadi represents all of these ideas together, right? So that means that the Islamic Republic itself, its ideology directly, I mean, the secularism wall will stop that in. So I think I'm less worried about the Islamic Republic sneaking in, more worried about people like Nargis Mohammadi and what they stand for, and Masih Ali-Nejad. They are going to be a bigger problem than the Islamic Republic itself. Does that answer your question?
Just, I guess the point is to ensure that you don't have any dishonest or disruptive elements engage in calculated aggression and leverage the democratic process as a means to lower the entrance barrier for them to include their sedition in the national discourse. And you have a repeat of what happened in Egypt vis-a-vis the Muslim Brotherhood-led interim government after the fall of Mubarak during the Arab Nightmare.
Yeah, the Islamic Republic, anything that resembles it is going to be so toxic that I don't think that they have a chance. I think they are going to be more of a threat when it comes to like a terrorist group, like more of an ISIS than a Muslim Brotherhood. Like Brotherhood is like, oh, we come to your system and we use the elections to come take over. I don't think that the Islamic Republic has that way of getting into our politics. I think they're going to be more like ISIS, more like illegal troublemakers that will bomb here, kill that person, or do some terrorist activities here and there. That's the way that whatever remains of the Islamic Republic, that's the way that I think they're going to cause this problem, not through the electoral process.
So, what do I think? I think that with the Palestine protests, it was probably mostly young Arabic people who have been known to be quite violent in London and across the UK. They don't have a good reputation of being calm and predictable in what they're going to do. And I do think that the police, I honestly do believe that they were afraid to engage. I think that they thought if they just corral them in, keep them away from buildings, and just let them do whatever the hell they wanted to do, and that would be a lot easier than trying to fight them, which is what would probably have happened if they would have needed so many riot police to take them all down, and they would pretty much have to probably arrest every single one of them. So, and I think that initially, I think it may have been a sort of a similar situation to the Uber driver that Nare experienced was, oh, protest, violence. And I think that maybe that was initially what they thought. Then they didn't know the difference between an Iranian and, the pro-Pali nuts. And so I think that maybe that was possibly the reason for the overreaction. I can't read their minds. However, I do think after multiple weekends, lots and lots of protests in London, I think that the police are smart enough to have noticed that the people in the Iranian protests are like middle class, middle aged, often much older. They're normally dressed. They don't seem like they're loons. They just seem like normal people. And I think they probably have figured it out. I think these people are different. And I do think that there is definitely something to the waving the British flags a lot, that the British flags are always there, the fact that they always play the God Save the King, it's respect. And all of those things I think has played a part in the way it's sort of the I saw it be very, very different. And so I think that they've figured it out now. That's what I think. Okay, Daniel, you're up.
Okay, good evening. Do you hear me? Right, so my question is with a little backstory. Like when the Soviet Union fell, a country like Lithuania, they removed everyone who was connected to the KGB, who was connected to the Communist Party, and they started the government from scratch. And those who were in charge before wasn't allowed for any role in the government, any public role, anything. They possibly could go and like work in I don't know, the private sector maybe. And I hear a lot of talks about Iran that they say, no, but you can't totally condemn all the IRGC members and all the political actors that are right now taking place in Iran. And I think it's a misunderstanding because Persians and Iranians are really like good established national country. Like they have their national identity. And I'm just curious, I mean, what do you think of it? Do you think it's a good move to remove all the IRGC and all the parliament that is the current parliament right now? And I don't think it was a
Okay,
mistake. I
just
think it even gave prosperity to those places.
okay. I don't know much about, so I thought it was like, honestly, I don't know how much that is true about the Soviet Union. I know this is very true about what happened after the fall of Saddam, right? So when Saddam fell, the process of de-Baathification, I think that might be a better example to use because it might resemble what we're dealing with here in Iran a little bit more. So the Americans decided that nobody that was involved in the Ba'ath Party, the party of Saddam, should be allowed to participate in the new government after Saddam. That ended up being a disaster because it created a huge power vacuum
Yeah, but
that it caused a decade of chaos and the rise of ISIS. So Princess of Pahlavi has very much like repeated that we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the people who are working within the Islamic Republic, they continue working after the Islamic Republic falls, except the ones with evidence that they have blood on their hand. When it
uh,
comes to quickly to say what you want to say, but let me finish my point then after quickly, please. Yeah.
they're incompetent. Like they're in the politics in Iran right now. All the
All right.
political actors are
All right,
based on
let me address that. Let me address that. Okay, it doesn't matter if they're incompetent. We would have a meritocracy, and then the way that you will make people with more competence get in is not that you don't just get rid of everybody and then rebuild everything. That will be chaotic, right? So you will have the people who are like that. That will be so hard to manage. People are in the middle of their jobs, right? You will let them continue their work, and then but you will open the job, you will slowly transition to more to you will open like the new people who would be hired would be based on merit. People, then you would have performance metrics, so that if people are not doing their job properly, after a little while you basically give them warnings and maybe remove them slowly. You don't just like like break everything apart and just see what happens. That would be the power vacuum that will create will be messy, and especially given that we've seen what has happened in Iraq because of that. I have the unpopular belief that the United States did not make a mistake removing Saddam. I mean, a lot of people disagree with me on that. I think the mistake was de-Baathification. I think it was a good thing that the United States removed Saddam. It was a really good thing that they did that, but the chaos that came after it and the so many Americans that died because of it was because of the Baathification. With regards to the IRGC, yeah, we will get rid of the IRGC, of course, but many people we wouldn't get rid of the people who are working in the IRGC. Any person who's working within the IRGC who doesn't have blood on their hand will be moved to the Artesh. So it's not
are
like when we
those
get rid of the
any
IRGC, what hold on, let me finish my points, please. Okay, let me just
Mhm.
let me try to make my point, right? So yeah, now I've lost my chain of thought. Yeah, so basically telling every single IRGC soldier that you're out of a job is almost a guarantee to repeat the process of what created ISIS in Iraq. Basically, telling a whole bunch of people who have been trained to fight that yeah, you're out of a job and get the hell out, and we're not going to hire you. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? We just created an army for the the people who are going to try to bring the Islamic Republic back. So Princess of Pahlavi wisely has said that we have to bring all of these people in under the umbrella of the Artesh and just have one army. Go ahead.
And all right, like in Iraq, the problem was that they didn't have a real nationality like the Iranians, like the Persians have still. And it was more of like imperialist countries like France and Britain just came with a pencil and a ruler and just like, all right, this is Iraq, this is this, this is this, this is this, and like people like Kurds, Baluchis, other nationalities were like in situation where they forced to live under the same government, although they was hating each other. So this is not the
That's not the
situation in
only.
Iran.
That's not the only problem.
Yeah,
Debathification
it's
was only a
one.
big problem. Yeah, but
Yeah,
debathification was only also a problem, and we're not going to repeat that.
yeah, I understand. So, but in Iran, this is not the case, I think.
Yeah, but it's saying it's saying that they were hurt. Okay, I know we don't have that problem. Just because we don't have that problem, we don't have to then have their other problems. So you're saying Iraq has, like, we're identifying two problems Iraq had, and you're saying Iran doesn't have one of them. I'm like, okay, how about we have none of them among these two problems? So not having that problem that you're identifying doesn't mean that we should basically decide to have the second problem, because we're lucky enough to not have the other one. So we are identifying problem A and problem B. The lack of a national identity as strong as we have in Iran is problem A. Problem B that caused chaos in Iraq is debathification. So you're saying you guys don't have problem A. I'm like, okay, we would also like to not have problem B as well. That would be nice. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, and the other thing is, do you believe in likelihood that there will come a war after Iran is free? Like pretty much what happened in Israel
With who?
in 1948?
With who?
I don't know, like
I think we're gonna have a. I think we might have some wars with Taliban, and we're gonna have some wars with some Islamic terrorist groups in Pakistan, like from Pakistan. I think we're gonna have some wars with them. I think it's. I think we're gonna. I think it's very unlikely, not impossible, for us to have wars on our western borders. Let me see. Yeah, probably not. Actually, we might have some issues with Hash Shabi on our western borders. Okay, so the wars that we're going to be having is mostly going to be with militias, not with states, except maybe in Afghanistan, we might have a war with the Taliban. So other than the Taliban, we might actually have a war with Taliban. Okay, so that's going to be the only war with an actual state. The other wars we're going to be having is not going to be with the state. It might even be cooperating with the state against the militia groups. So we might be cooperating with Iraq against Hashishabi. That's very unlikely because Hashishabi is very influential in Iraq. But we're not. We at least if we do fight Hashishabi, I mean, I hope Iraq gets to a point where Hashishabi is denounced by their state. Very hard to do that, but even if we attack Hashishabi in Iraq, we're going to declare that, hey, this is not an attack on Iraq. So, and Pakistan as well, right? So there are terrorist groups within Pakistan that one might cause us a lot of hassle. So it's going to be tense because we might want to talk to those governments to work with each other to deal with them, but then we have to respect their border integrity. But at the same time, there is terrorist elements from within their borders who are trying to come and cause us problem in our borders. And what do you do if we think the government of those countries are not doing enough to tackle them? But we also want to respect our neighbors. So these are the kind of stuff that we probably have to deal with in the future. But yeah, the greatest threat I think when it comes to an actual war between two states is going to be with Afghanistan, with the Taliban.
oh,
Okay, Jeffrey,
interesting.
go ahead
Thank you.
and do a quick
I
chime.
want to free Iran to help get rid of.
No, yeah, Samantha. What? She has a comment on this, I think. Yeah, Samantha.
I want to free Iran to help us go to war with Hezbollah Shaitan and get rid of them.
Hezbollah. Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I want
So
that
I call
too.
them
I want that too.
Hezbollah.
Yes, has
Instead of
Shaitan.
party of
I
God,
mean,
it's
that's
a
an.
party of Shaitan.
I don't know. I love Shaitan. I don't know. That's I don't want to insult Shaitan. Okay. So I don't know if I like that, but okay. I'm more. I'm a fan of Shaitan. I'm more anti-God. So Hezbollah works. Allah, Hezbollah. Actually, I mean, if you read the Quran, they are the Hezbollah. They are the party of Allah. I mean, that's what you would expect from the party of Allah. Actually, Shaitan was the first humanist. If you read his story, so I don't think that's fair to him.
I mean, you're not wrong about there being the main. So this debaptization was not the problem. It was the delay in the conventional phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom and non-interventionists undermining our plans to hit the Mullah regime in 2005, like we were looking to do, and not providing jobs for the rank and file in the Iraqi army post fall of the. I mean, you had to get rid of the Ba'athists. You had to still maintain people having jobs, though, and that's the key point. You said people don't have the blood on their hands. With regards to destabilization, your focus on what the threats are probably you're spot on, spot on. With regards to sub-state transnational actors that'll be somewhat rogue regime, I'll also add Putin and the criminalized counterintelligence state and the Chinese Communist Party elements of the Pakistani government will probably also almost assuredly support those insurgent elements to try and destabilize Iran because losing the Mullah regime is an antithetical to their interests. To that end, it would be very, because the United States fought almost a 20-year long war against Islamic fundamentalism, and we have a wealth of experience in counterinsurgency, those are the people that you should reach out to, which is why I was saying, like, here's how you'd create PMCs and all this other stuff, not to go fight the mullahs, to maybe also set them up so that they can become a, what is it, like your version of Department of Homeland Security that is trained and experienced in guarding against insurgents based threats.
All right,
Okay, next we have Michael.
Hey,
Michael.
Armin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. So I have a question for you, right? So there's so first I'm gonna make a little statement and then I'll give you the question, right? So there's like this warfare propaganda, right? This news warfare propaganda being pushed out by these independent like reports. Because I've heard that, oh, Iran's gonna propose a US a deal in the Geneva, blah blah blah, this and that. Oh, that they're scrambling for something. Do you believe that the Geneva meeting will actually go well, or do you think it'll be a massive failure?
Massive failure seems like it, but what are other people saying? So, but before you actually say
Yeah.
that, let me give context to people who are saying this. So, Arakshi, the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic, is going to be meeting in Geneva with the, I think, Witkoff and Jared Kushner, or is it just like, yeah, it's going to be meeting with the American side regarding the final. I think maybe Trump has said it's a final chance for them to come up with a meaningful offer, or basically, or there going to be consequences potentially. He means that it seemed like he was suggesting that if they don't give something meaningful tomorrow, right? Is it tomorrow?
What Iran wants is
There's,
the lifting
yeah,
of sanctions as well, right?
yeah.
So that way they can.
Yeah, that's a joke, by the way.
That'll never
Yeah,
happen.
that's the funniest joke. That will never happen. Yeah, but and it seems like the Trump is signaling that if they don't come up with something meaningful, then there's going to be war. Yeah, the fact that they're asking for sanctions removal means that they're living in a completely different universe than us. That's not even on the table with regards to, like, the negotiation is like, give us something so that we don't fuck you up. Like, there is no talk regarding removal of the sanctions. They're like, do you want us to do you want to surrender, or do you want us to attack you? And they're like, how about you give us money? What are you talking about? Like, huh? Like, that's what the Islamic Republic is suggesting. And like, how about you don't attack? This is okay. So the Americans are saying we want 0% enrichment of uranium. We want your range of ballistic missiles to be under 300 kilometers, and we want you to completely stop supporting proxy terrorist groups in the region. And the Islamic Republic is like, how about no? How about we continue enriching uranium? How about we don't even talk about our missiles? And how about we don't talk about our proxy groups? And how about you don't attack and also remove the sanctions? Like it's a joke. Like what the hell
So
are you
Iran is
talking about? Like
basically the IRGC is basically, or
yes.
Islamic Republic is basically placing a trap for Donald Trump of like, oh, if you lift the sanctions, we will get rid of our nuclear program or blah blah blah.
No, they're not saying that. I mean, they're not offering anything
Yeah.
meaningful. They're not offering anything meaningful at all. They're saying that maybe we'll bring it down to like under 60, like below 60%, and we allow you to come check on a daily basis, and also we'll give you some oil and gas, and we will buy some planes from you because you've been kind enough to remove the sanctions, so now we can buy planes from you. So we will buy some planes from you, and also maybe you could come, Trump could come and do some div construction in our cities. That's what they're offering, right?
Also, one last thing I
So
want to. Oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's a joke, it's like funny, it's like
Ah,
comedy, but go on.
so I want to see if Jeffrey agrees with me with this or not, but I think that toppling Saddam Hussein, I think, was somewhat of a mistake because at what at some point he kept these terrorist groups, out of power that were trying to push him out. But I feel like the ones that were like he's not a saint, right? Obviously he's not perfect, and so like I feel like that was an issue right there. But I feel like the reason why the Iraq War also happened was because of Iraqi refugee lobbyists like Ahmed Chalabi.
But
Do you want me
here's
to
the thing.
answer, or you want Armin to answer it?
Just quickly, Jeffrey, you go ahead and answer. I think short term, it looks like it was a bad idea, and it could have been much, much, much less costly if we didn't do the debathification in Iraq. It could have been less chaotic. It didn't have to turn into 10 years of chaos if we didn't do debathification. I think the excuse for the war was like maybe it was a lie, but I think long term, the benefits way outweigh the costs. I mean, especially like I think if you want to see the benefits of removing Saddam, you have to zoom out instead of looking in 10 years or 20 years. If you zoom out and look at 50 years and 100 years, if we remove Saddam and the Islamic Republic, like short term, it seemed like removing Saddam benefited the Islamic Republic, but now if we get rid of the Islamic Republic, I mean. Imagine we live in a world where there's no Saddam, where there's no Islamic Republic. Cuba is not communist anymore. Venezuela is basically now cooperating with the United States, and we have removed Hezbollah and Hamas are not there anymore. And yeah, I mean, this is going to and Russia has been for decade after decades of war. Russia has now become weaker and weaker. North Korea will become only relevant in their area of the planet, and China is still growing, but with at such a pace that is much slower than United States, for eventually the US's dominance as a forever superpower is all but guaranteed, right? I mean, that's amazing. Like, I mean, all of this, a world without Saddam is so much better than a world with Saddam. So yes, it was difficult for a couple of years in the beginning, but I think eventually it worked that way. I mean, now that the Islamic Republic is falling as well, this whole if Saddam was in power and the Islamic Republic fell, this area will still not be stable, right? This still will not be stable. Now, without Saddam and the Islamic Republic, we will finally could have eventually a stable Middle East. Jeffrey, sorry, too long.
All all valid points. So the reason the calculations and underwrote the United States led military intervention into Iraq to remove Saddam Hussein stem from two main observations and conclusions. One is the operational impact of global socioeconomic and technological trends that I keep hammering home, which minimize the transaction costs regarding information, or that an actor needs to make significant impact on the world system. The scope of that impact no longer stays local. The time you have between an actor plans a course of action and implements that course of action been reduced. You have no warning time, and the time between when an actor initiates a course of action and the impact of that action reaches its maximum point of impact has been reduced. So you have no response time, right? People think that, oh, 9/11 changed the world. Incorrect. The terrorist attack of September 11th illustrated in a very brutal way the world had already operationally changed. When you measure that insight along with the fact that Saddam Hussein's consistent violation of UN resolutions that were pursuant to the ceasefire of the first Gulf War, UN Resolution 687, specifically Articles 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12, which includes support of terrorists, including Al Qaeda, albeit Saddam Hussein and his Ba'athist regime were not directly involved in the operational aspects of 9/11. Saddam Hussein very much provided organizational support to Al Qaeda and other Islamic fundamentalist terrorists. There's no doubt about that at all. And not for nothing, continued to pursue his dumb D capability. I mean, the reason that Israel knew where to strike regarding the Alawite regime's clandestine nuclear reactor in 2014 was because of the intel we found in Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist headquarters after the toppling of Saddam Hussein. So as far as like again, some of the like Armin's not wrong again. Armin, you come in one hell of a weapon, man. I can't tell you how proud I am of you. No, I mean that. That's not meant to be flattering, right? I mean, you're coming a long way. Not to like, oh, I'm the teacher. I'm just saying, like, you're juggling all this horrible shit you got to deal with, your friends and all the stuff they're dealing with in Iran, and yet you've continually maintained, I mean, behaviorally, like a sense of humility and humanity that most people don't maintain when not put under such pressure, as well as increased your, your operational capability. I mean, it's actually quite amazing. So in regards to what Armin was saying, where was I at? Damn. Oh, right. With regards to why there was instability, the majority of the instability stemmed from the fact we were delayed in the United Nations by would-be near competitors, both Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, the Chinese Communist Party, along with other actors, including those in NATO, that all had vested interest in keeping Saddam in power to the tunes of billions of dollars from back to oil concession for the oil for food program. And that subsequently allowed Saddam's time to decentralize his Fedayeen Saddam terror troops, center of gravity in the Republican Guard and the rest to meld them into the indigenous populace and wage a protracted insurgency campaign in the immediate aftermath of the conventional military phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom, which then provided an opportunity for regional hostile exogenous actors, specifically the Mullah regime, to flood in foreign fighters like Soleimani via al-Quds forces when they flooded across the border in Kirkuk and taught a lot of people like Al-Qaeda in Iraq how to make bomb belts and V-bids to kill my fellow soldiers, which is in no insignificant manner why, like President Trump in his first term killed Soleimani. So what's the whole short and skinny of that? The idea that somehow we should not have removed Saddam Hussein because he was somehow a stabilizing force is absolute horseshit, pushed by both like radical leftists and non-interventionists on the right, and does not hold up even to a superficial level of analytical scrutiny when you know what the substantive element of the issue is. It's total bullshit.
All right.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And thank you, Armin.
Let's try to go through the list so that we could finish everybody.
This feels like a mom and dad thing, and I don't have to be the mean mom when you're being like the good dad.
I'm the dad? Okay, that's good.
Look at all of our babies in here. Okay.
Oh my God.
Johan, you're next.
All right. Yeah, thanks. My question is not related to what we discussed previously here, but it's about the historical artifacts. Okay. I remember it must have been like 2013 or 2014 when ISIS reached Palmyra, and they went up to these 5,000 years old statues and started smashing them with sledgehammers. And a good while back, I read that in 1979, after the revolution happened, the mullahs said that time starts today, like there is nothing before, it doesn't count. And I just thought that maybe they did the same thing, like burnt books and ancient scriptures, and I just knew that there has to be so much of that in Iran. And today, and this is why I bring the question up today, I saw it was actually posted on the Discord in the news channel that they closed down a museum, maybe several museums, I don't know, at least one museum in Tehran until further notice. And people were worried that they would do this, that they would take these artifacts and either destroy them or steal them or ship them away somehow. So have they destroyed anything, or do they have them in the museums even at display? And what about like Persia police, if I'm saying that correct. I don't know where we have these Persia police more south, where we have these really awesome ancient stone carvings and stuff. What about all that? Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay,
wondering.
so it's very interesting because when you were asking me this, I wrote like, no hand, I wrote Persepolis here to tell you about that. And then you mentioned it, even though I wanted to use that as a response to your question. So let me explain to everybody what the question is. So if people to give it some context. So, given that Islamists, when they are victorious, they invade somewhere or they get the government in their hand, they want to make it seem like everything has changed so much, everything is now Islamic, and everything now has to be abiding Islam, and everything before what is, you know, was wrong, right? And this is the way of the prophet, right? So the prophet came and declared his prophethood and eventually started ruling Arabia. They called the days before him Jahiliyyah, means the days of ignorance, right? And everything after it basically was like enlightenment, right? So everything before him, the history of the whole world, like everything that was there before was basically ignorance, and now we're entering it. So when ISIS comes in and declares everything to be un-Islamic, and now there's a new way, and everything before this was wrong, that's the way of the prophet. When the Islamic Republic comes into power in 1979 in Iran, and declare the way they declare everything before them to be un-Islamic, and now everything is Islamic. That's also the way of the prophet, right? So ISIS was destroying these statues because, these like ancient statues, because they considered them to be idol and gods in their opinion, and a challenge, like, pretend gods, and a challenge to Allah, and shirk basically. So they have to be smashed as un-Islamic idols. And the Islamic Republic, now, here, you're asking if the Islamic Republic did something similar. And this shows the strength of the national identity of the Iranian people, because they tried and they couldn't. Because in the Islamic Republic, when it came to power, they wanted to bulldoze. They wanted to basically destroy the entire place and basically turn it into dust. And they couldn't, because that would be the end of them. And another similar thing is that they tried to get rid of the flag completely, right? They tried to have a flag that was like an ISIS flag, right? And somebody had to come convince them that, oh, the red is the, I don't know, Hussein, the green is Ali, I don't know, some bullshit Shia stuff. And they're like, no, we can't change it because this is actually Islamic, right? I mean, you can see now they're trying to even try to argue that the lion and sun is even Islamic. What I'm saying is that the national symbols and history of Iran is so tied into people's identity, like collective identity, that even the Islamic Republic could not get rid of them. They, like, Khomeini tried. Khomeini was completely against patriotism or nationalism. He was even against the idea of Iran as a concept. Like, he didn't like nation states as a concept. He was wanting to have the Islamic Ummah, not a nation state of Iran. Like, that was like meaningless to him. But the Iran Iraq War quickly made the Islamic Republic realize that there is no way of mobilizing Iranians in any direction without nationalism, without patriotic symbols. So what they did is, Khomeini originally tried to get rid of everything patriotic, but once they saw that this is too powerful of a force, within, ingrained within the Iranian people's, DNA, I mean, like, within the DNA of society, they realized that what they went on a mission to steal them as Islamic symbols one by one, right? So they tried to get rid of Nowruz, for example, they couldn't, right? That for 47 years they tried to basically get rid of Persian, ancient Persian holidays and replace it with Islamic ones. they managed to add them, but they were never like, think about this. Think about the Islamic Republic with all of its control was not able to cancel Nowruz, even though they really wanted to. So the fact that what ISIS did is something that the Islamic Republic couldn't do with our symbol. I mean, they got, unfortunately, they destroyed many areas of Persepolis. There are many items in our museums that they constantly steal and sell it to, foreign, what is it called? When people smugglers, right, and sell it like illegally into the dark market. Like, I was like, what do you call the people who smuggle? Oh, smugglers. Okay, right. So, so, so they sell it in the dark market. Like, there are different officials that basically take our national treasures and historical artifact and try to make a quick buck with it. But their goal to completely come and destroy it. I mean, many of our even like many of the Shia traditions are attempts of, so you know how they're crazy, for example, Ashura, where they cut themselves and everyone is wearing black. This used to be actually something beautiful that was Persian, right? This was something Persian that was beautiful, and they turned it Shia and they made it into something like cultish, right? It was Siyavashun. It was this Siyavashun thing that was actually a very nice, beautiful ancient Persian ceremony. But a lot of the things that they do is competition with patriotic Iranian symbols, and they first try to destroy it. And if they can't destroy it, they try to claim that it's Islamic. And usually they can't destroy it. And so, for example, they try to destroy the lion and sun. After 47 years, it has come back in such a strength that they now try to claim that this is actually Ali, this is the Islamic symbol. They try to do that with so many other things, right? Does that even answer your question, or did I miss your question?
No, no, that really very interesting. Maybe something about these artifacts in the museum in Tehran. Otherwise, perfect.
Yeah, the artifacts. What I've heard is that items keep going missing. So I don't know, like, this the and they don't take proper care of them, right? Like, they once they came into, so I don't know if you know this, but the first animation in history was made by Iranians. Is this, I don't know what do you call it? It is this thing that if that you spin it and you can see a deer running. So like, it's an ancient artifact that is the first recorded and form of like animation, like something that is moving, right? And like, if they brought it on TV, and they were so careless, like they were not wearing gloves, they were putting it, and people were like losing their minds, like, oh my god, this guy's gonna drop it. And even like when they started selling there, for example, is in the British Museum, and the UK was lending it to the Islamic Republic to display it for a while. And when they were handing it over, you could see that the British people, they had like their gloves, white gloves, and everything in their hand, and they were so careful with it. And then when the officials for the Islamic Republic came, they just grabbed it with their bare hands, and everybody, and people were like, "What the hell are they doing?" And by the way, this is why I appreciate the British Museum holding on to these things, because we don't, right? Like, people are like, "Oh my god, give it back!" But yeah, they don't have any respect for our history, and they steal from our museums and stuff like that. So, but again, it would have been a lot worse if the strength of the national identity of the Iranians was not a force to reckon with. Like, the Islamic takeover didn't. I mean, this has happened in our history so many times. Alexander came and invaded. We, but then eventually we Persianized our invaders. Okay, the Mongols, the Arabs came and they invaded. Eventually, the Persian culture dominated. Like, they invaded with their armies, but eventually the Persian culture came back on top, and we were not Arabized. The Mongols came, they invaded, they took over Iran, but we were not. Eventually, the Persian culture dominated and came on top. We weren't like other places where, like, the Persian identity is so like is so strong that even when we get invaded after a couple of years, it will resurface and basically not let that culture to destroy it. For some reason, it's so tied. This culture and this identity is so tied to the land that no amount of invasions and attempts to destroy it is successful.
Okay. So, just as a reminder, we've got about 30 minutes left. If you are on the list I'm about to read, please be ready with your question. We have Richard, Elad, Armin again, Eric, Shauna, and Roy with one written question for me to read. So, Richard,
Hi, thank you. Armin, I had a kind of a question for you. So this is really a propaganda counteraction question. Some of the regime propaganda directed against Crown Prince Pahlavi has been, besides the standard, autocrat nonsense, a lot of it I've noticed, especially the propaganda directed towards the Western audiences, is done from a racial perspective. They basically try to characterize the revolution and the Crown Prince's activities as Persian supremacy, trying to basically dominate the other minorities in Iran. I realize that's because, unfortunately, Western audiences have been conditioned to view all issues through a racial lens. But as far as counteracting that, besides obviously promoting the idea, very clear evidence demonstrating that the Crown Prince is not acting on behalf of the Persian plurality and is all groups in Iran.
So,
Do you have any advice in terms of how to sort of counteract that propaganda?
yeah, but what evidence do they have of any form of Persian supremacy? Like, do they have any evidence?
This is the exact same propaganda they use regarding.
Richard, you're cutting in and out for me, but like, I didn't hear what you said. Do they have any evidence for these claims?
No, they have absolutely no evidence. It's the same kind of propaganda they use to convince people to support Hamas. They don't really need evidence. They just basically paint it as a racial issue, basically frame it as some kind of racial supremacy issue, and then they have probably a de facto base of people that sort of get on board with that don't need evidence.
Yeah, so Princess of Pahlavi and his team is obsessed with showing how, Kurdish representation, Azeri representation, Baluchi representation, Gilaki representation, Bakhtiyar representation, Arab representation. Like, they have gone out of their way. But Richard, I'm getting a lot of background from you, Richard, by the way. Sorry. There's like some really bad audio. Yeah. All right. So, and if you look at their plan, the transition plan, it's also very much obsessed with trying to make sure that these groups are protected. And one of Princess of Pahlavi's four principles are equal individual rights, under one law, right? So equal individual rights for all Iranian citizens. So they don't just, the only counter to that I could give is there's not a single thing these people could point to that demonstrates that. Not a single. In fact, we have so much to show the opposite. And also, I don't even know what the Persian ethnicity is, to be honest. Like, I don't think it even exists. Like, we have Persian culture, we have Persian language. When it comes to ethnicities, we have Kurds, we have Azeris, we have Baluchis, and we have people who are not those. But we don't have like a qom fars. Okay, only we don't have a Persian ethnicity, dude. Like, Iranians in this chat, we just have people who don't belong in any of these categories. We speak Persian, and the Persian culture is enjoyed by all of us, including the Kurds and Azeris and Gilakis and everybody else. But there is no ethnicity of Persians anymore, I think. Persian culture is something that belongs to all Iranians. I don't see any group of people come and say, like, we are Qom Pars, like, as an ethnic groups, like, identify as an ethnic group of Persians, like Qom Pars. People who celebrate Persian culture and language and identity, they consider themselves just Iranian, not like an ethnicity. So I don't even know what they're referring to. The only time I see people referring to the Persian ethnicity rather than the Persian language or culture are Marxist or separatists, ethnic groups that are trying to say, like, oh, Persian fascists, like, oh my god, the Persian fascists. So there's a minority of crazy, Marxist or separatist people who say, oh, Persian fascists. All Persian people are fascists. And honestly, nobody takes them seriously. Our ethnic groups don't take them seriously. They're pathetic. They're very small in number. And one way actually to demonstrate that these people are full of shit, by the way, Richard, if you want to respond to them, is that high number of Kurds, Azeri, Lors, Bakhtiari, Gileki, all ethnic groups of Iranians that support Princes of Pahlavi. Like there wasn't like in early January, there wasn't a single corner of Iran where people didn't come out and in millions in the streets. Like people didn't expect Tabriz to show up because they thought Tabriz is not for Pahlavi because they're like, I don't know, they have this Turkish identity. They came out in large numbers and shouted his name. People expected the Kurdish people not to come out and shout his name, and they came out in large numbers and shouted his name. Tell them this. Tell them, if you think that Princess of Pahlavi is bringing Persian fascism, you think you have been able to identify that against the Kurdish or the Azeri minority, you being able to identify that, and the Iranian Kurds haven't, the Iranian Azeris haven't, the Iranian Baluchis haven't. Do you really think that you know what Princess of Pahlavi is up to more than these minority ethnic groups that you're trying to protect, more than they do? Because they seem to be supporting Princess of Pahlavi. Are you like the savior from outside that is trying to come in and say that you know better than these people themselves? Because they seem to be supporting Princess of Pahlavi in large numbers. I mean, Nara here, for example, she's not. Nara, are you Qom Pars? Or like what ethnicity are you? Like I forgot what was you are
No, I am I'm an Armenian, and
Armenian. There you go.
yeah, I'm Armenian Iranian, and we have been living in Iran for about 600 years. So our culture
Okay.
is much closer to Iranian culture than Armenian culture in Armenia, because they grew up
Right.
with the Soviets. Like people my age, their parents and grandparents, they grew up under the Soviets. We grew up under
Yeah.
Muhammad. Our cultures are completely different.
And you support Princess of Pahlavi, right?
100%. And so
Yeah.
does my entire
Okay. Yeah.
family, everybody that's in Iran, our
There
community.
you go.
We all support Prince Reza Pahlavi, yes.
Yeah. So why are you supporting, apparently according to these, Persian fascism against you who doesn't belong into the Persian ethnicity? Huh? Like why are you doing that? Like aren't
Well,
you?
I'm a Persian supremacist, so
Oh,
um,
okay.
yeah,
Yes. Okay. Yeah. There you go. That's the answer.
yeah.
I,
Just
We
Richard, just go
mainly
tell them. Hmm,
our community supports Pahlavi because we truly thrived under the Pahlavi dynasty. We truly did. Just speaking for Armenians separately.
Yeah. Just Richard. The short answer is just go tell them to talk the vast majority of all of these ethnic groups who support Princess of Pahlavi. That's the answer. Thank you,
it's an
Nara.
excellent. I appreciate it, but I think you should be aware that a lot of these groups that we're talking to aren't going to be necessarily persuaded by actual evidence or logic. There was a fair amount of success convincing Americans that the Israel-Palestinian wars were likened to South African
Just,
apartheid, black segregation in this country, and that outside savior complex. Apparently, the regime knows to hit that nerve when they're dealing with Americans.
then they just tell them that I would have argued with you, but you have Pahlavi derangement syndrome, so there's no. I'm going to value my time and not waste my time arguing with you because you're so filled with shit that there's no amount of evidence that is going to convince you. So I'm not going to waste my time with you. That's the response.
Okay, let's get PDS classified as an
Right.
officially order. Deal.
Right.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Okay, next we have Elad.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a question, but before that, I'd just like to point out the irony about how so many people who are so worried about what's going to happen in between the different ethnicities in Iran are also the same people that are pushing multiculturalism with migrant and immigrant and illegal immigrants, and are also completely ignoring the fact that all of these cultures, all of these ethnicities in Iran have evolved next to one another, and no one is actually an immigrant. They're all like ancient peoples that have always evolved together.
And also, when they want to they want to make it seem like our kings are fascists, but if you look at our history, all our kings were not Persian. Like most, like did we have like what they consider the Persian ethnicity? Like if you keep going back, like we don't have they were all from these different ethnicities. They were all our kings were from these what they call minority ethnicities. So like, oh, like even Pahlavi is not full Persian, right? So yeah, they're going. How are they going to be a Persian fascist, but they're not even Persian, like ethnic wise? Yeah, but go on.
Yeah.
I ha-
So
I'm sorry, can I just chime in for 2 seconds? It's crazy that they're, like, yeah, worried about, like, tension between the different ethnic groups of Iran, but they think that they can impose a one-state solution on the Israelis and the Palestinians, and it would just be, like, just multi-ethnic, peaceful.